I forgot to resume the recording, folks. So my apologies. We do record these sessions. In a little bit, I'll show you where these recorded sessions are. So in case you want to listen to them, go back and play them back, you're certainly welcome to do so. But here I have my little query, right? I'm looking at my source category specific. I'm looking at a specific source, and I'm looking at my checkout logs, and I'm looking for the word error exception. And here when I clicked on that one little block, this one little block right here, that is 1 minute of time. So here, if I put my cursor in here, I see that I'm looking at from 4:27 a.m. to 4:28 a.m. This is 4:27 a.m., 4:28 a.m. my time, okay? My local time. Now, one of the first things I want to do is I want to change this. I don't want to look at 1 minute's worth of time. I want to look, say, the last 60 minutes worth of time. So I'm going to rerun this. To rerun this, I click on this little magnifying glass, this blue button, and now it reruns this query showing me data for the last 60 minutes. Now, when I look here, I see that my results, it has a number, 2,893. That is the number of log messages I got based on this query over the last 60 minutes. So this represents the number of log messages I have down here. We typically put 25 on a page, and as you can see, I've got about 116 pages worth. And if you do the math, it probably averages out properly. You can, if you want to, export out these messages, okay, if you feel the need to. But you'll find most of the things that you want to do, you can do in here. So, by the way, while I'm here, let's also talk about this. Done gathering results shows me that I'm done. I've executed my query. How long did it take? Again, the number of records I got back, and then my session ID in case I need that for some strange reason. Now, what I want to do is I want to use my logs and understand what the problem is. Certainly, since I'm looking for the words error or exception here, I should be able to find out what my error is. But I also want to know what caused my error. And that may not have a message that says error or exception. So I'm going to go up to that query and I'm going to remove the words error or exception. And I'm going to rerun this query again. Again, I can click on this button, or I can just hit the enter key on my keyboard. So now I'm up to about 4,666 messages. Now, there's a lot of these messages that I really don't want to scroll through, okay? And I don't have to. One of the advanced analytic features we have in Sumo Logic is this little log reduce button. And if I click on log reduce, it's going to combine my like messages together. So here, under my messages, I have my original messages. Those are still there. They haven't changed. But it added this new tab called signatures. And out of my 4,443, if I read that number correctly, messages, 1,297 are this message. Now, where you see the stars in this message, these are the different values. When it combined like messages, some of the values it said are different values. So it's a transaction ID, the level name, the amount, the credit, the purchase. Those might be different values, but basically the messages are themselves structured the same way. They're identical. The values might be a little different. And so what I want to do here is I want to go down. This is an informational message. It doesn't really help me to troubleshoot this problem. But the next message is an error message. And it proceeds to tell me we have a bad handshake. Error, SSL routine, SSL get server verified, the certificate failed. And so the certificate verification failed. So now it's looking like I've got a problem with my secure socket layer getting my certificate. And for those of you familiar with PCI, right, where you do your credit card transactions, what it does is between you and the agency that's going to approve or disapprove your purchase, they take that credit card information, all that sort of thing, and they encrypt it using PKI, public key infrastructure. And so if there's a problem generating this key that they're going to use to encrypt and decrypt the credit card information back and forth, then it obviously won't process the transaction. So I'm definitely getting a sense here. I've got a problem with my digital certificate that I use to verify my certificate. Okay. So this certificate of verification is failing. This is why I'm generating all those errors. So I can quickly see here, that's the cause of my problem. Now I could look and see, for example, here's a Python script that's using this, but this is really my issue. So I now know really where to focus. I suspect that my digital certificate on my transaction checkout system needs to be up to date. Maybe it's expired or something wrong with it, that sort of thing. Now, as I mentioned, I really want to know what caused this, why this happened. And while these high numbers are good for a lot of things, sometimes you want to flip it and sort it in maybe ascending order. And you may also want to go back and look at more time. So I'm going to go back about 3 hours here. And I want to look at my low numbers. And specifically what I'm looking for here, and when you run it by default, it sorts it in descending order, highest to lowest. I'm going to flip that and go ascending order here. And just bear with me a second here. Okay. You run it a little bit longer. There's something I'm specifically looking for. And we'll just wait this little rascal out. Okay. There we go. Flip it again. Huh. Okay. You hear snoring in the background. That's my dog. So I apologize for that. What I'm looking for here, and what I normally see, and let me go back one more time here, is when we booted this thing up, okay, I would find that there is a presence of where it, when we booted it up, it indicated it was a dev environment. Okay, now I know this because I've done this lots of times, and I know what to look for. But hopefully the logs will show me this here in just a second. The problem is that we used to boot this thing up every couple of hours. And so I could be able to see that log entry. Recently, we've changed our data here a little bit. And we've kind of not made this little demo as smooth as it used to be. We've kind of messed it up a little bit. So bear with me a second. There we go. Good. Again, let me flip this around, go for the low counts. Okay. Here we go. Here's what I'm looking for. So here I can see that when we booted it up, we booted up our starting clusters, prod 8, the services checkout, that says here version 1.14 dev. 1.14 dev, this is a prod environment, right? We were looking at prod things before. My errors were all about my prod environment, stuff like that, my prod. So what happens here, what looks like happened, is that somebody took a dev environment and promoted it to prod. And that's what's caused my certificate to basically fail. Because when they promoted the dev environment, they didn't change the certificate. Now, if I'm really smart, and there's a rumor that says we really, really are, what we ought to do is we ought to maybe create some dashboards that when we deploy something, we can look at those dashboards and we can see perhaps who promoted a dev environment to prod. So now I can reach out and talk to Jack and say, Jack, did you recently just promote an environment from dev to prod? Well, yeah, I did. Did you change the digital certificate? Oh, no, I didn't. Well, we need to improve the process and add that to our process checklist before we promote. And so you can, again, these are from my development environment logs. So you can see that, regardless of my system logs, my production logs, my development logs, I can use all of these to understand what's going on and to troubleshoot and to enhance and to make improvements. And that's the purpose of the exercise. So in here, you saw how we can use Sumo Logic, I hope, based on alerts, Slack messages, whatever. We looked at a very high-level dashboard. That high-level dashboard took us to some other dashboards and some other panels where we can look at some metric queries. And metric typically tell us what is going on, test question. And Then from there, we investigate into logs, and logs typically tell us why this is happening. And so another, like I said, the part of that test question. So this is the process that we went through. Are there any questions about that? Any questions at all? Okay. Michael, I see you joined us here. Let me make sure you got your microphone's enabled. Again, if you got questions, feel free to unmute your mic and ask your question. But otherwise, I'll go ahead and continue on. So the next thing I want to talk here about is how do we get data into Sumo Logic and how do we use Sumo Logic? Typically, the way we deal with Sumo Logic is 3 steps. 1, data collection. We've got to get data into Sumo Logic so then we can run our logs and query and analyze and build dashboards and all that sort of thing. So this first phase is our data collection phase, where we deal with collectors and we deal with sources. Now, if you're on a hosted environment, those hosted collectors are hosted by us. You don't have to worry about this. Again, test question. Hosted collectors are hosted by us. You don't have to worry about them. They are there. All we need is the environment, where the environment is located, and obviously to use an account that has access to those logs and things like that. So there is a collector, a hosted collector that is used to collect things. Now, once you connect to that environment through that collector, then you decide what sources of data do you want. If we're talking about AWS, do you want your S3 logs? Do you want your CloudTrail logs? What logs do you want? What metrics do you want? If you're dealing with Azure, network monitor logs, what other logs do you want? What other metrics do you want? So the sources are the individual sources of your logs or your metrics that you're wanting to deal with. So a collector connects you to an environment, and then within that environment, you've got various sources of data. Now, from that, once we get the data coming into Sumo Logic, now we can write queries, we can analyze with great charts, create bar charts, line charts, map charts, whatever, and take those charts and we can start building dashboards. And in this course, we're going to go through these phases here a little bit. We will not create a collector per se, but we will see the collectors and we'll see what's going on. If you ever want to learn how to create a collector, you'll want to come back and take our administration class. That's where we teach you how to set up the collectors and the sources. But once we get, like I said, data coming in, we can run our queries, then we build our dashboards and we can create our alerts and then go from there. And these are the 3 phases that make up Sumo Logic's data flow. As far as our collectors, as I said, they come in 2 great categories. Hosted collectors. If you're on the cloud, if you're on a cloud environment, software as a service, these use hosted collectors. And again, we host those collectors ourselves. You don't have to worry about them. Let's say that you got some on-prem systems, right? Some servers and server rooms. Well, there you get to install a collector. Now, these collectors are little lightweight Java-based applications, and the collector does 3 things. It encrypts, it compresses, and it sends. It sends it to the Sumo Logic cloud, just like these collectors do. Encrypts, compresses, and sends to the Sumo Logic cloud so that you can then write queries off of that data. Now, in the case of these installed collectors, you can install a collector on each machine that you have sources that you want to grab, or you could create a consolidated installed collector where you install it on one machine, and then you have these other machines for their logs to this machine. And again, the collector will encrypt the data, send the data, encrypt, compress, and send is what it's going to do. So these, by the way, when I say these are lightweight Java-based applications, they'll take up less than 1% increase of your CPU and less than 1% increase of your memory. So unless, of course, you got a bunch of logs that you're bringing in and stuff like that. So there, we do talk in the administration class of when to use more than one collector or when to go with a consolidated collector. Talk about those. Now, as we bring data into Sumo, we have metadata tags, and as I'm sure you're all aware, metadata is not a Sumo Logic term. It is an industry term. It means information about your data. So, but we have some specific metadata tags that we use. When you create a collector, you can reference that collector by saying _collector equals, and then whatever you call that collector. You can do the same thing with your source, _source equals, and then the name of that source. Now, the one thing on this slide that you're probably going to want to know for the test is this source name. This source name is the name and path of your log file. So that you will see on the exam. And oh, by the way, I'm going to show you in a minute where you can get a hold of all these slides in case you need to use these slides during your exam. All of our certification exams are open book, open note, open documentation, open slides. Okay. And I'll show you where you can get a hold of slides and stuff. Now, the one that you'll notice down here is in bold is source category. And we recommend you use source category quite a bit because you can configure your source category to reflect your structure, your environmental structure. So a lot of companies, have a prod environment, a dev environment, a QA environment, a UAT environment. And so they might call it prod, dev, UAT, then slash. Within that environment, I have web servers, I have authentication servers, I have email servers. And so you could say web servers, authentication servers, email servers, whatever, slash, and then what type of authentication servers or what type of web servers or whatever. You can break this down with slashes to reflect from a large structure to a low level implementation within that structure of what you're looking at. And so you can create, every time you create a source, you can give it a unique source category to reflect the structure of your environment. Okay. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for, let us log into the training environment. What I'd like you all to do is I'd like you to go to the following, fire up Google Chrome or Firefox, and I'd like you to go to service.sumologic.com. That's service.sumologic.com. And if you go to service.sumologic.com, if you'll just bear with me a moment here. And if I sign out, okay, it should look something like this. Now, the second thing I'd like you all to do is I'd like you to pick a 3-digit number from 001 to 999. Don't care which number you pick. Some of my friends from the UK might grab 007. I don't care. But if you would, in the chat box, please let me know what 3-digit number you're going to grab. So type in the 3-digit number that you want to use in the chat box. Okay. Now I'm going to grab 603. Why 603, you might ask? Because in New Hampshire, where I live, the state of New Hampshire, the area code for the state is 603. Okay. And what we want you to do is we want you to log in as training plus analyst with that number at sumologic.com. So you're going to log in as training plus analyst with that 3-digit number that you want at sumologic.com. Doesn't look like anybody's grabbed the same number, so I thank you. Okay. And then the password is, and I'll go ahead and enable this so you can see it, capital S, lowercase e, C-U-R-I-T-Y, numeral 2, numeral 1, exclamation mark. Security 21, exclamation mark. And this is the password we're using for October. Now, come November, come specifically the first Monday of November, we will change the password again. I do not know what the password is or will be in November, but I will know when we change it. So if you want to, you can always reach out to me and you can ask me what the password is once it gets changed, and I'll let you know. That's why I put my contact information in there. But if once you type in the password and you click enter, you should be able to log into this environment. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to get everybody logged into the environment. And by the way, it might be easier for you to copy the information that I put in the chat box. If you want, you can do it that way. But I'd like you to, let me just check something here. Well, actually, let me do this. What I'd like you to do is once you get logged in here, I'd like you to raise your hand. So once you get logged in here, go ahead and raise your hand. And we'll give you a little harbor tour of what's going on. And show you where the labs are and some other things. And then we will start lab 1 and we'll take a break. So we should be taking a break here in about 20 minutes, just in case you're curious. So 9 of you are logged in, 10 of you are logged in. Thank you. More importantly, if you have problems logging in, let us know. Okay, let us know if you're having issues. By the way, you can use this environment for this class. You can use this environment for tomorrow's class. You can use this environment next week if you want to, okay? It is an open environment. You can play with it. You can do all of our labs and all of our exercises. So 10 out of 17 you were logged in. Again, I realize that some people may have gotten distracted by work. I get it. I understand. I sympathize. So I'm going to assume that we are all of us who want to be in here are in here. Let me lower all the hands. Looks like 11 of you in. Is there anybody who's got a problem logging in? Any issues there? Let us know. Myself or Alex will gladly help you out. Okay. So let's take a look at things. So first of all, this panel on the left may be open. It may not be. If it's not open, you'll see it says Sumo Logic, and you'll see this little hamburger menu. Maybe a hamburger menu. You may think of it as a stack of pancakes. Please do not ask why things relate to food for me. Probably not a healthy conversation. But if you click on it, you'll see this opens up, we call our navigation panel. And here on our navigation panel, we have our shared folder, which is a common folder that you and I can see all the contents of. So think of this as your public folder, your shared folder, whatever you'd like to call it. To the left of that is your personal folder. And so here is where you can put and save personal things. Even if it's in your personal folder, you can still share it with others. And we'll show you how to do that in just a few minutes in the exercise, the first lab. Over here is my favorites. That's what the star denotes. If you want to mark something as a favorite, all you have to do is, I'm going to go back to my personal folder here. If I look at these objects, you'll see they all have a hollow star. If I click on that hollow star and fill it in, I have now added that object as a favorite. So any object that you want to add as your favorite, simply click on the star and it'll be added as a favorite. You don't want it to be a favorite anymore in your favorites, click on the full filled in star, click on it, and it removes it from your favorites. So easy on, easy off. All right. This area right here is my reasons, and I can say recently opened by me, things that I've recently opened, or I can see recently shared with me. So when we get around to sharing things with one another, you'll see that you can see things that were just recently shared with you. Okay. So there is that. So that's the quick down and dirty here about our navigation panel. Now, below our navigation panel down here is our main menu. And I'll talk through one of these features. But what I want to focus on right now is I want to focus on the word help. So if I click on help, and if you click on help, you'll see under help, there's something here called community. And if I click on community, lo and behold, it will take us out to the Sumo Logic community. And here's where you, our customers, us Sumo, and our partners and everybody can all gather around with suggestions, ideas, and thoughts, and code examples and all kinds of neat stuff. So you'll find there's an ideas area. That's ideas and enhancement requests that people have made. And if you wanted to, you can see what enhancement requests people have made. You can even vote on them, give us your thoughts, all of that. But for right now, I want to go back to the community. So I'm back here at the community. And what I want to do is I want to search for the word slides, S-L-I-D-E-S, slides. And when I search for slides, I see I get this training and certification labs, webinars, and slides. And when I click here, I see that for all of our courses, all of our certification courses and workshops, we have a link to the labs, to the recordings, and to the slides. So you can, I can, we can click on these slides and you can download them if you want through your LinkedIn account, or you can just cycle through them here. As I said, there's going to be a few test questions like this one right here. And there's another test question coming up that I'll get into when I get into the slides, but you have access to our slides. Okay. And if you get this panel, just click away and it will go away. That's nothing we have any control over. Yes. So Michael says, can I please share the link? That's an excellent idea, Michael. So let me share that link and put that into the chat box. There you go. Thank you, Michael. In fact, I'll even put it here since you asked. There you go. All right. By the way, the nice thing about the Q&A is that you can all see the questions that are asked and the answers there as well. Okay. And again, if you want a recording of this class, or maybe you don't have time to go through the search mastery class, you want to listen to the recording and do the labs, you can do that. That's fine. Again, to take these exams, all you really need to know is the content of the class, do the labs, and you should be good to go. So, by the way, those of you interested in a new Cloud Sim class, there's the fundamentals, there's the administration class that you can go. Same with observability. Okay. So those are all our various certification classes. And then we've got some workshops in here that have turned out to be very powerful and helpful for us as well. All right. Any questions about that? By the way, while we're here, why don't we click under fundamental certification, click on labs. And these are going to be the 7 labs that you and I are going to do. Now, these labs are actually in our product documentation. And there's a couple ways to get to our product documentation. One, again, you can go into here into help, click on documentation. Or if you're like me, I'm kind of old school. I like to type in the URL. So if you type in help.sumologic.com, that will also take you to our documentation. Now, here in our documentation, I want to show you a couple of things just to make things a little easy and helpful to you. Under this search area, the search chapter, there is something here called search cheat sheets. And if I click on search cheat sheets, I see that underneath there's 4 different things: general search cheat sheets, log operator search cheat sheets, et cetera, et cetera. If I click on log operator search cheat sheets, these are the operators we use when we build queries. So this is a very handy thing for you all to have. And so again, I am going to paste it into the chat box so that you can have it. And of course, somebody's going to say, well, gee, John, this is terrific, but is there a PDF version? Glad you asked. Right here, in the end of the first paragraph, it says there's a PDF version that you can print out and you can put next to your computer. And you can reference this if you want to. These are the various operators and things we use for our queries. These are the things that you and I are going to play with today and tomorrow as we build queries. So I wanted to make you aware of that. The other thing I wanted to make you aware of is in the first chapter. And by the way, when you open up, when you're at the home page, let me go back. Apologize for the long-winded explanation. This is the home page. And all these chapters are listed here as chapters. And then you can see the subtopics within those chapters. Okay. You want to know about our APIs, do things programmatically? We've got a whole chapter on APIs. You want to learn about Cloud SIEM? There's a whole chapter on Cloud SIEM. You want to learn about our observability solution? A whole chapter on that. Okay. And of course, you can search here if you want to, and search for specific things that you want, commands or whatever. But in this first chapter, start here. And by the way, when you open this up somehow, some way, your table of contents moves over here to the left. And so here I am in chapter 1. This is chapter 2, 3, 4, 5, et cetera, et cetera. But in chapter 1, under Quick Start Labs and Tutorials, here is where all of our labs are for all of our classes for the most part. Okay. So here, if I look on hands-on labs fundamentals, this is the same link that I gave you a moment ago for our hands-on labs fundamentals. These are the 7 labs that we are going to do. So again, let me put this up here. Copy this and put this in the chat box. So here are our labs. And if you wouldn't mind, I suggest if you're using Google Chrome, you go ahead and pin this tab down because we're going to use it from time to time. I'm also going to pin my Sumo Logic environment, if you don't mind. And I'm going to close this up. And I'm going to close this up. And we're in good shape to start playing around. Now, is there anybody I've managed to lose or any questions that you all have before I start looking at lab 1? And when we get through lab 1, we'll take a break. Let's take a look at lab 1, ladies and gentlemen. So here in lab 1, it wants us to start by viewing our data. It got you to sign in, which you did. You all logged in, you're able to see what's going on. If you want to see what data is available to you in your environment, in your company's environment, all you have to do is go into your Sumo Logic environment, in my case, go into the training environment, and in the main menu here, so if you need to open up the navigation panel, open it up, go to Manage Data, click on Collection, and these are my collectors and my sources. The ones with triangles are my collectors, and the things underneath them are my sources. So you can see, and maybe if you want to, maybe you want to do a search for something. Maybe you're into Okta. Gee, I want to see what kind of Okta stuff I have. Might help here if I could spell properly. By the way, it doesn't make any difference if you search uppercase Okta, lowercase Okta. This is all case insensitive. It'll find anything with the word Okta. I'm sure some of you are all about AWS. I can search for AWS. I can search for Azure. I can search for anything. Okay. But these are my collectors and these are my sources. So I can see that. And that's what they want you to be aware of. Now, there's two ways to do this. One, I could obviously see this through this interface, but I can also write a query and query the information and see my sources. So to create a query, it says here, we're going to click on this new blue button and we're going to choose the log search. So again, back to my Sumo Logic environment, this lovely blue new button, click on it, log search. And here I am in the new search interface. By the way, in the new search interface, just want to make you aware of something. If I click all the way over here to the right, these three vertical dots, some people refer to this as the kebab. It's actually technically called the more action button, but if you click on it, you'll see there's something here, cheat sheets, that will take you out to those cheat sheets that I mentioned to you before. So there's a little link that takes you right out to those cheat sheets before that. Now, in here is where I could write a query and get the information that I want. But before I do that, let's go back to our directions. So I'm switching back to my directions, and here is my query. Now I can take this query, you can take this query, we can swipe over it, we can copy this query, we can go up here, and we can paste this query right in. And I can run it by either hitting the enter key or clicking on this button. Now, what is this query doing? This query, first of all, is got a star, which means give me everything. So I'm asking for all of my log messages for the last, by default, it's 15 minutes. I can change this if I want to, and I'll talk about that in just a little bit. But I want to see the last 15 minutes of logs, and I have, looks like about 901,278 log messages over the last 15 minutes. Then there's this pipe which says I've got another command I want to run. So our commands are joined together by this pipe, kind of a Unix Linux thing. And then we say I want to count by underscore source category. Now underscore source category is a metadata tag. And this count by is going to create this aggregates tab. And it's then going to take out of my 901,000 messages and tell me how many are from this source, how many are from this source, how many are from this source, and so forth, so on. So it says count by source category. Now I'm going to add to that, if you don't mind, I'm going to add another pipe. And I'm going to say, I can either say sort by or order by, doesn't make any difference. But what I want to do is I want to sort or order by underscore count. And you may start to say, why underscore count? Why not count? This count, ladies and gentlemen, is an operator. It's telling them to count something, okay? So think of a teacher in the classroom counting students. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The result of that operator are stored in this underscore count. So when I told it to sort by underscore count, you'll now see it's changed this and it's sorting in descending order. So by default, it sorts it in descending order. If I wanted to, I could specify DESC, or if I want it to be in ascending order, I could type in ASC. So you can control whether you want it to be in ascending order, descending order, and if you don't specify it, we put it in descending order. Now, you should, if your company's using source category, you should be able to take this code from here, copy it, go to your environment, paste it in and run it, and it should run. Because we assume, or I'm going to assume, that one of the things you want to do is you want to see where your data is coming from and where things are coming from in your environment. Now, there's one other thing, right? I can add, if I want to, here another pipe and another command. And I could continue this whole thing out. And I have the world's longest run-on sentence, which is great for the system. But for you and me humans, it's not really as readable as we'd like it to be. So for us humans, we recommend that before you type in the pipe, you do a shift enter or an alt enter. If you're on a Windows keyboard, it's an alt enter. If you're on a Mac keyboard, it's a shift enter, so that you word wrap these. This is exactly the same query, runs exactly the same way, but now these are broken up by character turn line feeds, which makes it a little bit more readable for you and for me. Any questions so far? We in decent shape here? Let me make sure all of you have the ability to talk. There you go. So if you got any questions, feel free to ask. Like I said, your questions will only help you out, to help out your fellow classmates. All right, back to my lab. So basically we've done step 4 here. We've got our results. I've added a couple things to that. That part of the exercise is done. The next thing we assume you want to do, is you want to find some shared dashboard that somebody put in your environment so you can see what's going on, right? You want to find something that somebody put in there in your environment. So if we go into our library here, so again, if your navigation panel is not opened up, open it up. And over here where the library folder is, click on that. And then rather than trying to look through things, you can just do a search, and I'm going to type in Apache Access. And it doesn't make any difference what case you type it in. It will find it whether it's an uppercase or lowercase or whatever. And what you want here, ladies and gentlemen, is this first folder. If you put your cursor on it, you'll get a tooltip showing you it was created by me. And that's the one that you want. You do not want the second one. You do not want this one. You want the first one. And if you open this up, you'll see there's an Apache overview folder in there. And if you click on that Apache overview dashboard, you will see that it is now showing us all kinds of neat and wonderful information here. Okay. Now, somebody's obviously played with this. So let me fix this. Pay no attention to what I am doing. Basically, you can edit these dashboards in place, which is really kind of neat. Okay. And if you'll bear with me just a second, let me shrink this down. So I now see the whole world. Okay. So there's some exercise that people do, and they always seem to do it on this particular dashboard rather than their own, but we'll get into it. So here I can see where my users are logging in from. I can see all kinds of information about, what, excuse me, what nodes and stuff they're using. I can see what browsers and stuff URLs are going after. All kinds of good stuff here. And so I assume that you probably want to do something similar in your world. You want to be able to find something in your company's environment that tells you a story that you're interested in. What are my users looking at for my web browsers? Who are they logging in from? Whatever. You might have a whole bunch of dashboards and queries that somebody wrote for you that you can then run and execute and all that sort of stuff. And that's basically what I'm doing here. It's running some existing dashboard. Okay. So we're finding and running and displaying a shared dashboard. That's what we're doing. Now, the next thing we want to show you is that, you're going to learn a little bit about writing queries here today. And tomorrow you're going to learn a lot more about writing queries. But the best query is the one you don't have to write. Sumo Logic has created something here called the app catalog. And in the app catalog, we have almost 200 different apps that you might want to install and run and have a good time with. I'm going to assume that a few of your companies use a product called Zoom, right? Just how we're communicating right now. Well, we have an app for Zoom that we wrote. And if I look at this preview dashboard here, I can see the kind of information this app gives me. How long are my meetings? How people are using Zoom? How many attendees are they having? Where are the attendees coming from? Where are my users using this from? What kind of environments are they using it from? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Guest activities and stuff like that. This could be kind of handy information for you if you're into Zoom. I can go back to my app catalog. Maybe you're into AWS. We've got a whole bunch of AWS applications built to talk about S3 buckets, observability, elastic load balancers, configs, all kinds of stuff here, right? Now, what we want to do per our directions is we want to go to the app catalog and we want to search for Apache. So as I start typing in APA, you see it starts filtering down my applications. And so here I have Apache with a feather and I have Apache Tomcat. Now, you and I are going to install this Apache with a feather, this first one. So we're going to click on this and it talks about the Apache app is used to see what's going on with our Apache web servers. And I can preview my dashboards and see the kind of information and stuff that I want. Now, to tell you the truth, the reason we're installing this app is to show you how to install an app. And then later on, we're going to use this app and we're going to filter one of the panels. We're going to edit things. So I do want you to click on this button that says add to dashboard. And then for the app name, I would like you to append your initials. Now, because I teach this class about every week, whether I want to or not only am I going to put my initials, but I'm also going to put today's date, okay, 10/19. So, but you can just put your initials and you're probably fine. Now, back to my directions for a second. So we've gone in here, we've added our initials, and then here, we need to tie it together to our data source. And what we're going to do is normally where it says select our source category, we're going to grab the pull down there. We're going to say enter a custom data filter. And what I want you to do is I want you to copy this information without the period at the end. And by the way, I'm going to copy and put this in the chat box to make this a little easier for you, in case you want it from there. And what I'm going to do, what we want you to do is where it says source category, pull this and choose custom data filter. And then you want to paste this information in. What we're doing is we're connecting these dashboards to our data source. And we're saying we're going to use a metadata tag here. That's what this custom data filter is. We've got a metadata tag called web server _ system. And under our web server _ system, we've got IIS, Apache, and a whole bunch of others. We're telling it to filter it only seeing Apache data. So where my web server _ system equals Apache. For those of you who are curious, if you click under advanced, you'll see this is going to put it in my personal folder, which is exactly where we want it. So then when I click add to library, it's going to take a minute here and it's going to add it to my library. Now, if I go into my personal library, here is my new Apache app that I've just installed. I can click on Apache overview and I see this dashboard and it's up and it's running and life is good. So what you have done is you have managed to install an application that has a bunch of dashboards in it, which each of these dashboards has several queries. So remember I mentioned about these panels. Each one of these panels represents a query. You've just installed all this and saved yourself lots of time. Most of our applications out of the box will probably get you somewhere between 70 to 90% of where you need to be. And then you may have to go in and customize a couple of panels to get that last 10 to 30%. But hopefully out of the box solutions are going to save you lots of time and get you up and get you running quickly. And that's what the app catalog does. Now, there's two things we need to do with this. One I just did, and that is I wanted to test things, right? So I tested my Apache overview and it runs. If it doesn't run, that means we did not do that web server farm equals whatever properly. But hopefully yours is all running and got data here and life is good. The second thing they want us to do is they want us to share this application with folks. So I'm going to go up here to this parent container where it says Apache with my initials. And on this three vertical dots of the kebab or the more action button, whatever you want to call it, I'm going to click on it. And you'll see I have an option that says share. By the way, notice here that I can export, I can import, I can delete, I cannot zip. Cannot zip, okay? Might see that in the form of a test question. But what we want to do is we want to share. So back to our directions over here, we want to choose share. And then that brings up the share dialog box. So you'll find there are three distinctive groups and roles that you can share with. One, you can share with your entire organization. Boom, done, finito. Two, you can also share with any built-in role that we have in the system. So there's a role here called training analyst. You guys are all logged in with accounts that are members of training analyst. And you can also send this to a named account. So you can look me up, add me in there if you want to. And so you can either send it to the entire organization, a specific role, or a specific named user. Those are the three things that you can set it to. Now, what permissions do folks get? Well, they can view, means they can view and they can execute. So if I give them the view right, they can view this dashboard, they can run this dashboard, that's great. Want to make changes to it? Can't do that. For that, they'll need the edit right. Edit right means they can view, but then they can also make changes. What they cannot do is they cannot change the permissions. If you want to change the permissions, you'll need the manage right. So with the manage right, you can view and edit, plus you can change the permissions. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to choose view. By the way, I could notify all these recipients via email that I've just shared this with them, but I'm going to avoid a mailstorm and not throw that switch. And I'm going to click share. So just bear with me a second. I'm going to tell this whole story here. So I'm going to click share. Now it's given everybody the view right. But what I want to do is I want to change that. I want to granulate that a little bit. So I'm going to go back in here again, go back to share. This time I can see who has access. They all have the view right. And what I want to do is I want to give John the ability to manage, and I want to give you guys the ability to edit. So I can now modify these, and then I can save them. And that's what we need to know about sharing. So there's three levels of permission: view, edit, and manage. Any questions about sharing? All right, and I believe that wraps up this lab. So what do you say we take a break? Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a 10-minute break. When this timer gets down to 0, I'd like you to be back. So please take a 9-minute, I'll see you back in about 9 minutes and 53 seconds. Have a good break. Okay, hopefully we are all back. We are all rested and had our break in good shape. We filled up our coffee, tea, juice, whatever mugs, and we're ready to press forward. So just for planning purposes here, ladies and gentlemen, just wanted to mention to you, it'll probably take me about another 45 minutes to finish up these labs. And then, like I said, you'll have an hour once we go to the exam to do and complete the exam. So, but shouldn't take you long. Hopefully I've helped you with a lot of the test questions already, and we'll make it fairly easy for you. Okay. Again, as I mentioned before, if you got any questions, let me know. Otherwise, let's go ahead and get this party started. So we just finished up lab number 1. Now we're going to jump ahead to lab number 2. And we are going to start creating and searching our log data. So we are going to start creating a query, and we're going to start looking around. So one of the first things we recommend you do is take one of these metadata tags like source category, and we're going to start to use it. So I'm going to move on to lab number 2. We're going to play around here a little bit. Now, when I last left myself here, I had my navigation folder here open. I'm going to go ahead and close it up. Don't need it anymore. I've got a bunch of tabs here across the top, kind of cluttering things up a little bit. I could, of course, close them up individually, but that's kind of painful. My advice to you is if you grab the more action button of 3 vertical dots here on any one of those tabs, you'll see there's an option to close all tabs. Kind of cleans things up a little bit, resets us back to where we need to be. Okay. Now, I'm going to go ahead and click New Log Search. And in lab 2, it wanted me to start with, and I'm going to start with an underscore. So I type in underscore, and it starts bringing out my metadata tags. So this thing automatically has kind of a type. As I start typing things in, it filters down to what I can select. It matches what my choices are. So I'm going to grab underscore source category equals, and I'm going to play with some Apache logs. So it is labs slash, excuse me, lab with an L, not a slash there. Lab slash Apache. And as I start typing in, again, it starts giving me a choice of my various values. So I want lab slash Apache slash access. And if I just go ahead and run this by itself, I basically have a metadata keyword search here that I'm looking at. And here, for example, I get about 6,249 logs over the last 15 minutes. So a couple things. If I only want to see specific logs with a specific message, I could type in the word and I could say, you know what, I only want to see those with, say, 403. Sorry, John, 403. And if I run this query, you'll now notice I'm down to 81 messages. So the first line in our query that makes up our query really consists of 2 things. It consists of our metadata tag and any keyword searching that we want to look at. And this keyword searching is really nice as far as filtering up what we will want to see. So if I search for the word get, G-E-T, notice that I'm looking for the word get. It's only going to show me messages that have the word get. And also, you'll notice this first line is case insensitive. I typed in lower GET, and it found uppercase GET. No problem. And so when you and I write a query, and this is going to be a test question, so let me find the slides here and prepare you for the exam. This is the structure that you and I are going to use. We are typically going to add our metadata tag and any keywords that we want to search for. And that is going to set kind of the top of our query, the funnel of our query. Think of this thing as a funnel. And so the more specific I can be in this first line, the tighter, the smaller the diameter of my funnel is. If I just put a star up here and says, give me everything, it's a pretty wide top of a funnel. But if I'm saying only give me log data for my Apache access and only those words that have Mozilla or get in them, that funnels it right down. Then after we do that, then we parse out the fields that we want to. And then we can filter. Then we can aggregate. Then we can format. So this is typically the process that normally happens. Metadata and keywords, then you parse, then you filter, then you aggregate, then you format. So again, my metadata and keywords kind of sets the diameter of my funnel. Then I parse, and I can either parse using JSON, I can parse using regular expressions, I can parse using XML, I can do something called a parse anchor, which you're going to see in just a moment. Then after I parse, I can filter, add where clauses, things like that. Use an aggregate operator. I want to maybe do a count or a sum or a min or a max. You can do that. And then I can also format and change things around. You'll see some of that in this class. So my point is this is the process that we go through. And you'll see that again in the form of a test question. So want to prepare you. Now back to my example here. Like I said, they talk about looking at my Apache Access logs and filtering for the word get. And again, this is case insensitive or not case sensitive, however you'd like to call it. The other thing I wanted to mention here is that I can change my time. So here I'm looking at the last 15 minutes and that's the default. I could change it to some other time that I want. Now, chances are the time that you want is not listed here. Let's say that I'm a big 45-minute fanatic. I want to see the last 45 minutes. It's not on my pick list. Good news. The way that you break this code is real simple. If you want to go back 45 minutes, first of all, delete everything that's there. Type in a minus to go back, 4 or 5, and then M for minutes, D for days, H for hours. And in my case, 45M will take me back 45 minutes. So it's really not a hard thing to figure out as far as this code goes. Not only can you use these relative values, you can also go to custom, and you got a date picker here that you can use. You got a date and time picker here that you can use if you want. You can even change the times, and it will populate this for you. Or you could type the dates and times in yourself. If you don't type in the year, by the way, it assumes current year. So if I said, 10/01 to 10/12, it would assume the year of 2021. All right. They'll also assume midnight as the time. By the way, somebody may ask the question, because I know you're all in different, perhaps time zones or whatever. How do you control the time zone and the times and all that good stuff? If I go in here to my preferences, so I'm going to open my navigation panel, I'm going to go to where my account is down here. Under my preferences, here is where you can specify what your default time zone is, and then how you want to see your date time formats. Again, in Europe and stuff, you guys tend to do, I believe it's month, day, year, day, month, year, as opposed to our in the US month, day, year. So, again, you can see it, and it will typically pick up these things from your default browser settings, but that's where you can control that. And then the other thing too is when you create your sources and your data that's coming in, that's where you'll decide what do you want to timestamp it and how you timestamp it, all that good stuff. So just wanted to point that out to you as a bonus. All right. So that's the question about time. One other thing about time. When I am looking at this sort of time or that sort of time, I'm looking at my timestamp in my logs. So I'm looking here at my timestamp in my logs based on the logs that I have. If I click over here in my settings, you'll see there's this use receipt time. And if I throw that and I run this now, I'm looking at my last 45 minutes, but I'm looking at it from the 45 minutes from when Sumo Logic received it. So when we receive it, we also put a timestamp in there. So here's when it was generated from the logs. Here's when we received it. And when I say go back 45 minutes based on my receipt time, that's when we see based on when we received it, not when it's in the logs, but when we received it. So you can switch that to receipt time if you want to. and we can filter it based on when we receive it. More than likely, your message time in your logs, timestamp in your logs is what you want. But I wanted to mention that to you. Okay. And that should take care of time. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about parsing a message. And I'm going to warn you, this is the hardest thing you're going to do today. We're going to do something called a parse anchor. And before I get into a parse anchor, I want to talk about this area over here. This area over here is called your field browser. And their field browser has fields in it based on something called a field extraction rule. So, for example, size, source IP, status code, where did these come from? These came from something called a field extraction rule. When your administrator or whoever sets up your sources, they may automatically want to parse out. And if I go into manage data and if I go into logs, I can see field extraction rules. So somebody could have and did, in our case, create a field extraction rule so that as I ingest logs from my Apache data source, I want to parse out the source IP, the method, the URL, the status code, the size, the refer of the user agent. I want to parse all of this information out. And that makes these fields available then in my field browser. So that if I want to see, for example, the source IP, I can just simply check mark it. If I want to see the status code, I can simply check mark it. Let me just check mark it here for a second. Humor me. There we go. And so I can see, and it automatically pulls out these fields. Now, additionally, I can also put my cursor on this and click, and it shows me a breakdown of my status codes, or it shows me a breakdown of my source IP addresses, both as far as a value and as far as an overall percentage. Again, makes a great test question. So these come from my field extraction rules. Now, I'm going to assume that your company, you don't have any field extraction rules. This is an entry-level course. Therefore, nobody's done this for you yet. Maybe you have. If you have, you can simply check mark them and use them. Fine. But I'm going to assume that you don't have them, which means we've got to get them. So I can pick on my first message. I can pick on my second message. My third message doesn't make a difference. But I'd like you to follow along with me. So we're going to do something called a parse anchor. And in the parse anchor, the only way a parse anchor is going to work is if your messages are consistently formatted. I'm going to say it again. You'll see it on the test. The only way a parse anchor is going to work is if your messages are consistently formatted. You'll see a test question where it says parse anchors can be used for unconditionally formatted or unstructured messages. And that is not the correct answer. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to anchor on something. So when it parses through this message, I'm going to have it look for this right bracket. So I'm going to start with this right bracket and I'm going to swipe over it. And I'm going to swipe over the word get. And I'm going to swipe over this next section, which is a URL. And I'm going to continue to swipe over HTTP 1/1. And I'm going to continue to swipe over these two sets of numbers. Then I'm going to go to the next line and I'm going to continue to swipe over everything that's in double quotes. And that's as far as I'm going to go. I'm going to let go. So again, if you didn't do it with me the first time, I'm going to do it again on the next message. I'm going to start with this bracket over here next to your time. Excuse me, let's get the bracket there. There we go. And I'm going to swipe over the word get. I'm going to swipe over this URL, swipe over HTTP 1/1, swipe over these two sets of numbers, go down to the next line, and I want to grab this entire URL, including what's in double quotes. That's all I want. Then I'm going to let go of my mouse for a second, so it's all highlighted. With it highlighted, I'm going to put my cursor over it. I'm going to right-click on that highlighted, and I'm going to say I want to parse selected text. This now shows me what I have highlighted or what I've selected in a panel. Now we're going to extract out certain fields. So this field right here called get, I'm going to swipe over it. I'm going to avoid any leading spaces or any trailing spaces. So just the word get. And I'm going to click on this. When I click on it, it removes the word get, replaces it with a star. Down here in my fields, I'm going to type in method. Get is a method. So I'm going to give it a name, method. And my method, my fields here are going to be separated by commas. So I type in method, comma. Now I'm going to grab this URL, which is a string of this stuff. And again, I want to go just to the space here. There you go. I don't want to include the space. And I am going to click to extract that. And again, I'm going to refer to this as the URL. Uniform Resource Locator. Now I'm going to skip this HTTP1 stuff here. I'm going to grab this first 3-digit number, which is my status code. I'm going to swipe over it. Again, not including any leading spaces or trailing spaces. I'm going to click to extract it. And I'm going to call this status code. Now, I cannot put spaces in this. I've got to put an underscore or, camel case it or whatever you want. I don't really care. But I can't put spaces in there. And then after this is my size in bytes. Or I can put bytes, whatever I want, size, bytes, whatever. And then size, E, John, E, thank you. And then this between my double quotes is my refer. So I'm not going to include the double quotes in my swipe. I just want to grab everything before and after the double quotes. And this I am going to call my referrer. And when I click submit, it now adds this line in here. And now when I run this query, what this is going to do is it's going to parse out my fields. So here's my method, here's my refer, here's my size, here's my status code, here's my URL, and finally I have my original message there. Now, those of you with keen eyesight might have noticed that the order I have listed down here at the bottom is not the same order that I listed up here. The order down here is listed alphabetically. If I want to change the order of how it's listed down here, I can do that using our fields command, and you'll learn that in another exercise. Actually, I'll learn that tomorrow. In tomorrow's class, we'll use the fields command to do that. But they're listed here alphabetically. Now, if you had a hard time doing that, I'm following along with me. If you go into lab 2 and you go down about 2/3 of the way, you'll see some code here. You can copy this code and paste it in as your code, and that'll work great. So if you weren't able to follow along, then you should be good to go this way so far. Now they want us to go ahead and do a save as and save this off. Okay. Always a good idea to code a little bit, save a little bit. So how we do the save as is over here in our little dots. We used to have the save as buttons and all that stuff underneath here, but we moved all that over here to the right. And so I can do a save as here, and I can give this thing a name. I think they want us to call this Apache status codes. And I want you to add your initials, and I'm going to add today's date just to make sure that keep things the way I want to here. All right. So it's a good idea to save it from time to time. Okay, don't have to, but good idea. So that takes care of lab number 2. Any questions? Any questions at all? Then what we're going to do here in lab 3 is we're going to embellish this a little bit. We're going to start charting out our data. We're going to add some different code lines in here to do things. So you'll notice when we go to lab 3, it wants us to add this count by status code. So I'm going to take this code here if I want to. I'm going to go down here to this line. I'm going to add a line by doing an Alt Enter or Shift Enter. Paste that line in and run it. And now when I run it, I have this new aggregates tab, and it's aggregated things by my status code. So out of my 22,204 messages, 16,000 of them are from this status code. 3,190 here from this status code, and so forth and so on. So now I'm starting to get some meaningful intelligence here as far as what's going on. By the way, a status code of 200 means everything worked great. Okay. So we're going to filter that out in a little bit. So that's what we did here. We aggregated our results by adding that count in there. Now what we want to do is we want to break it down by 1 minute intervals. So we're going to add an operator here called the time slice operator. And I could do time slice 1M to break things down to 1 minute. I could do a time slice 5M to break it down to 5 minutes. Basically, I'm breaking it into buckets of whatever my time slice is. I could do time slice 1H for 1 hour, so forth and so on. So after this is above the count operator, add the new line. Now, again, I could copy this, or I could type in it. So again, I type in a pipe, time slice. By the way, one thing, if your words turn to purple there, like mine just did, it means it recognized what I was trying to type. It recognized it as a reserved word. So this is going to create my time slice operator. And then what I want to do here is I want to count by underscore time slice. Again, time slice is an operator. It's going to create my time slices. My time slices will be referenced and be seen by referencing underscore time slice. Just make sure I'm spelled correctly. And so now when I do my count by, I see here's my time slices, here's my status codes, and here's my counts. So it's broken things down and made my time slice operators. Now, these time slice operators are not in any order. There are some operators that when I use them will automatically sort them and put them in the right order. But or otherwise I'd have to sort my time slices to put them in the right order. But now you can see I'm breaking things down by time slices. Now what I want to do next is I really want my time slices on my rows. I'd like my status codes across my columns, and I want my counts in the middle. In other words, I'd like to make a pivot table. And the way we use that is the transpose command. So transpose. And then what do I want on my row? On my row, I would like underscore time slice. I know I misspelled that wrong. And on my column, I would like my status code. And so now when I run this, I see on my rows, my time slices. On my columns, I'm seeing all my different status codes. And then I'm seeing my counts in the middle. Okay. Now, the reason I did this is so that I could create some sort of a visualization. I could create some sort of a bar chart, a column chart, a line chart, whatever. Me personally, I like a line chart. In the directions they have you using a bar chart. I don't care which one you use. Okay, you create a chart. And the point of this is that when I look at this chart, I see that my highest number of activity here is my 200s. And 200s means everything worked great. Now I could turn that off at the legend. I can click this so it's turned off. And also the next highest one is 304, which means I received things from cache. That's not an error. That's just an informational thing. So I could turn off 304 as well. The problem is my users could turn those back on. So really what I want to do is I want to filter them out. I want to filter them out. And typically when we want to add a filter, we normally add it as early in our query as we can, right after we grab the field that we want. So up here is where I extracted the field status code. I named it. So right after that is where I'm going to add my where clause. Where. And I'm going to throw in some parentheses here. And I'm going to say status underscore code equals 200 or status underscore code equals 304. And when I run this, what happens is I am filtering and only seeing my 200 and my 304, which is exactly opposite of what I really want. I want to see everything but those. And the way I fix this is in front of this parenthesis, I'm going to add an exclamation mark. So it reads where not status code equals 200 or status code equals 304. Not. Now I'm seeing the results that I really want here. Now I'm seeing all the other things, and my 200 and my 304 are not part of my legend. So that's what we did here in this where clause. We added that where clause, and that's what we did it. And that takes care of lab number 3. Now in lab number 4, what we're going to do is we're going to turn this into a dashboard. Okay. So in lab number 4, we're going to turn this into a dashboard. And okay. So to turn this into a dashboard, back to my query here, there's a button that says add to dashboard. Now, we get to give this the panel a name, and that name is fine. And we get to give our dashboard a name. What do we want to call our dashboard? And I believe in the book, they want us to call this Apache status codes with your initials. And again, I am going to throw in here my date. So 10/19/2021. And I want to make sure it's a unique number here. So this is not the same as my query that I just created. So I want to make sure it's a totally different number. So I'm going to click, it finally says create new dashboard. And that's what I want. I want to see the options, create a new dashboard with that name. Now, when I click on this, I need to explain something to you here. And that is normally by default, now when we create dashboards, we create them in our new dashboards. And that's all fine, well and good, except that for the test purposes and the things I need to explain for you for the test purposes, we want to actually use the old dashboards. So I want you to click on this and flip it back the other way. I want to use the legacy dashboards. Now, just so you know, our new dashboards have some wonderful features to them. And tomorrow I'll talk a little bit more about the new dashboards. Okay, I will get back to that. But our legacy dashboards have some features that we haven't incorporated into our new dashboards just yet. Once we do, we'll be talking about new dashboards, and that'll be that. We'll eventually deprecate the old dashboards, the legacy dashboards. But I do want to make sure this is in the switch. This is in the off position to the left. And then I'm going to click add. And now it's going to go ahead and create for us an old legacy dashboard here for the purposes of the test. And I can, you can, we can stretch this out, make it a little bit bigger, make it easy to see, because the first thing I noticed for those of us in the over 50-year-old category is that little box was hard for me to see in my eyes. Okay. My eyes are getting a little old. So I can make this bigger if I want to. Again, this legend will work, and in a few minutes, you'll see that when I'm done editing. Now in the, in the legacy dashboards, you'll see there's an option here to add panel. However, in the legacy dashboards, the only panels that you can add are a text and a title panel. In the new dashboard, you can add all kinds of panels, all kinds of neat stuff, and I'll talk about that tomorrow. But here, if I choose, I can either add a title panel or a text and title panel. So I'm going to add a text and title panel and say something like Apache status code errors. And something like these are the errors our customers are seeing. And I'll click submit, and there's the panel. And if I want to here, I can make it, fill out the dashboard like this. And really what I want to do is I want to have this text over here to the left, and so I can move things around if I want to, right? And also up here, this pull down, I can change my theme. Instead of a white background, I can make it a dark background. So which is better, 1 or 2? Again, 1 or 2. I'll let you decide. Now, when I'm done with this, I can click done editing. And so now I am done editing. My users can consume this. They can use the switches here. They can interact with it, all that good stuff, okay? By default, this is set for 45 minutes. What's going to happen is it's going to show me 45 minutes worth of data. And then at 45 minutes, it's going to completely refresh the chart with a new 45-minute segment. If you want to, you can switch this to live mode. So as new data comes in, the old data automatically gets pushed out. It's kind of in a live interactive mode. Okay. So that's live mode. But if I take it out of live mode, if I want to edit this again, test question. If I want to edit this again, you're going to want to click on this pencil icon. And then you can edit it and change it and modify it and do the things that you want. And when you're done editing it, click done editing. And that's the reason we're teaching you the legacy dashboard right now. And that, folks, is lab number 4. Any questions? All right. In lab number 5, we're going to go back to the application that we installed. We're going to show you how to modify a dashboard. So we're going to go back to our Sumo Logic environment. We're going to go back here to our personal folder. In our personal folder, we are going to find our Apache app that we installed back in lab 1, find this Apache overview dashboard, and we want to modify one of the panels in here. Now, this is done in the new dashboard tool. And by the way, in the new dashboard tool here, I could add all kinds of new panels, all kinds of wonderful stuff. Like I said, I'll talk more about this tomorrow. But what they want us to do is they want us to find this one called visitor location, which has a map of the Earth. And they want us to modify this query. And the cool thing is that you don't have to click an edit button or a pencil to go in here and modify a query. So if I click on this more action button or this kebab or whatever you want to call it, there is an option to edit this. And I'm going to click on edit, and this shows me my underlying query. Okay. Now, many of you are probably fascinated by this map query, and we'll talk more about this map query tomorrow. But what makes this work is that I have an IP address, and then I'm using this lookup command where I am passing in the IP address where it says geo/location. That's going to a partner of ours called Newstar. We're passing it the IP address, and it can then provide us the latitude, the longitude, the country code, the country name, the region, the city, and all of that good stuff. If you want to know more about that geo lookup, you can, of course, go to our documentation, and you can do a search for geo lookup, and you can find out everything you wanted to know about the geo lookup, but were afraid to ask. So here you go, all the documentation's there. Now, again, we will talk more about this tomorrow. What I need to do is I want to filter where the country name is equal to the United States. So I simply want to add a filter to this. Now, I cannot add a filter until I have the field country name. So here's that filter, here's that field comes from. So right after I get that field, I want you and I to add a new line. Again, Shift Enter, Alt Enter, whatever. Pipe where country underscore name equals. And then for this type of filter, I'm going to type in a literal string that's going to have a space in it, which means I need to have things in double quotes. So I'm going to type in 2 sets of double quotes or a set of double quotes, one at the beginning, one at the end. And I am going to type in here, United States. And when I run this, now the only time I see data is in the US. I don't see it in Canada. I don't see it in Europe. I don't see it any place else. And so my goal here, the goal here was to be able to modify this so you filter it and only display information for the United States. We add this filter. Now that I am done with this step, I can tell it to update my dashboard. and it will go back in here and show me my dashboard. And I am going to, if you don't mind, double click here a little bit to make it a little more readable. And I'm going to position it so that it looks halfway decent. I can zoom in, zoom out, all that fun stuff. But basically, I filtered my query so that I'm only seeing data from the United States. Any questions about that? Hey, guess what? Down to 2 labs left, 6 and 7. So lab 6, we're going to talk about creating alerts. And there's a lot of different ways of creating alerts. Okay. This is one of the more relevant, or I'm sorry, one of the more rudimentary ways of creating alerts. And unfortunately, we have other classes where we get into more specifics about creating alerts. So this does not do the create alert conversation justice. But what I want to do is I want to go back to our visitor location query right here in this dashboard. This time I want to open it up in search. So open in search. So it's going to open it up in a search tab. And there's my query. And then here, if you want to schedule this and or create some sort of a conditional alert, under the 3 dots here, this again, more action button or kebab, whatever you want to call it, you'll notice there's a save as button. And by the way, for test purposes, if you want to schedule something to create an alert, you're going to click on this save as button. That's what you're going to want to do. And then here in the save as button, there's a little button over here to the side that says, gee, I'd like to schedule this. And when do you want to schedule this, right? So if this is running for 45 minutes, maybe I want to run this every hour. And then I want it to, how do I want it to send it to me? Via email? Do I want it to invoke a script action? Do I want to send it through a webhook? To something like Slack, what do I want to do here? How do I want to deal with it? So in our exercise to keep things simple, we want you to create an email. And in that email, you can specify who you want your recipients to be and whatever you want on the subject line. And by the way, you can add these other dynamic fields here. And then the 4 things that you can include in here, the 4 things, and one of those like result set, you'll want to know because you'll see that on a test question. Bottom line is that you can choose to include the search query, the result set, the histogram, and also if you want a CSV attachment of these, you can include that as well. But result set is what you want to remember for the test. So you can, we can schedule this to happen. Now, that's not necessarily something that I would call an alert. And you'll find in other classes, we can talk about how you and I and others can go into monitoring here, and we can set alerts up this way. This is the new way that we now have the ability to create alerts. So forgive me, what we're talking about here was kind of in our course, and we used to call it alerts. We still do, but we now have something new called alerts, and I want to protect you for the test. So that is how you can schedule a report and create an alert based on that report. So every hour I get a message on what's going on with that report and how things are going. Any questions about alerts in this exercise? Okay. What about Slack integration for alerts? Yep. You can easily do that. There's 2 pieces to that though. Okay. One piece is that your administrator or someone is going to need to go into, actually they need to have higher permissions than I have. So just bear with me a moment. Let me log in with a different account. Okay. So I have a higher set of permissions right now. And here under monitors, I have something here called the connection. So here's where you're going to use the APIs of Slack or Teams or whatever, and you're going to create a connection to Slack. Okay. So you're going to go in here. What do you want to connect to? I want to connect to Slack, name, URL, all that fun stuff. What do you want to put in your payload? What kind of information? Then once you do that, then you can go into, just bear with me a second. Tell you what. Then you can go in here and do a save as and schedule this, and whatever connections you, whatever connections you create, you will be able to see those connections under webhook. You select webhook, and then you'll see those connections that you created here that you can use. So here's my Slack webhooks and stuff. So that's how you basically set it up, and can go to Slack, you can go to Teams, you can go to whatever you want using their APIs. Does that answer your question or give you a sense for that? You're very welcome. Appreciate you asking. All right. So that takes care of the conversation about alerts, Lab 6. Now you'd be happy to know Lab 7, we talk about getting help. We've already done that. I showed you that to you at the very beginning. How you can go to our community site, how you can go to our customer Slack channel. We mentioned that earlier. You can contact support a wide variety of ways. So in our product, those of you who see this test question, in our product here, bear with me a second while I get out of this. Maybe I get out of this. There we go. You can go into help, and you can go into support here, and you can connect to the support that way. You can email support@sumologic.com and put your trouble ticket in that way. There's lots. You can go to the support website and put your trouble ticket in that way. There are lots of different ways of connecting to support. Okay. And then we talked about documentation. I showed you where some of the training material was, the community, and all that good stuff. So that's pretty much takes care of lab number 7. And that pretty well wraps up the course. So what questions do you have before I turn you loose on taking the exam? Any questions? All right. To take the exam, a couple things I need you to do. Okay. First of all, I need you all to sign out of the training environment. Why do I want you to sign out of the training environment? Because you're all logged in as training plus analyst with some number. You're not logged in with your first name and your last name. You don't get credit for the exam. That's not going to do you any good. I don't want you to take the exam and have a problem. So, could I please replay the time format part again? Sure, I can. Just give me a second. Let me do this first, and then I'll come back and talk about the time format. So I want you to log out of the training environment. Okay. And I'd like you to log into your company's Sumo Logic environment. Now, how many of you, by showing me by raising your hands under reaction there in Zoom, do not have a company environment? All right, a couple of you, and that's fine. Good news. You can sign up for a free Sumo Logic environment, and you can take the exam in this environment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this URL and put it in the chat box. You can sign up for one. It's free. It's a free trial. There's no cost here. We're not going to ask you your credit card. Okay. All right. So you can sign up for one. Now, for the rest of you, I assume that you can all log into your Sumo Logic environments. So what I want you to do is I want you to go into your Sumo Logic environments. And for those of you who need to, you can go sign up for one, and you're going to get an email pretty darn quickly that says, here's your free environment, go to town. So I want you all to go to your Sumo Logic environment, and I'd like you all to log in with your credentials. And I'm going to show you where the exams and stuff are. So I'm going to give you a minute to do that. Get logged in. So just give me a second here. I'm just stalling, giving you all a chance to log in to your company's Sumo Logic environment. For those of you who don't have Sumo Logic environments, I'm giving you a chance to go ahead and sign up for one and get that email and click on that and go into that environment. Okay. Does it matter if we have multiple environments? No, it doesn't. My only concern there, Vincent, and it's a good question, is I hope your administrator has put your full information on those environments so that all of your environments have your first name and your last name. Okay.
Hey, John, there was a question from Solomon there about querying the API with Python.
Yep. Okay, yeah, I just see it now. Can I query the API with Python, or do I have to? It depends on what part of the API you're trying to do. I believe that some of them can be accessed through Python, some of them can't. And I'm not the guy who is the expert on this, but if I go into help.sumologic.com, okay, for example, if you want to set up our AWS observability and all that stuff, you can use Python for some of that. If you want to create user accounts, I'm not sure if you can use Python for that. But here in the API sections is where you can find out about how to and what you can do and all that fun stuff, and what languages or tools you can use for those things. That's the best I can help you with. Now, by the way, while I'm waiting, somebody asked also about the timestamp thing and the time format thing. Again, when a collector is created, we automatically specify what timestamps we want to use and how we want to use that for the data. Then on your end, you as a consumer of this, when you log into your Sumo Logic environment, if you click, open up the navigation panel like I have it here, click on where your username is, click on your preferences. Here is where we specify to use the browser's default time zone and or to use the default format or what format you want to use. So this goes back to somebody's question earlier about, can I show them the time stuff again? And hopefully that answers your question. And again, if we want to have a more detailed conversation, we can certainly do that. Now, I'm going to assume that you're all logged into your company's environment. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a preemptive strike here, okay? So what I would like you to do is, again, I want you to open up your navigation panel. So if it's not open, open it up. I'd like you to go to help, and I'd like you to go to community. And there's a reason why I'm doing this. You all will probably get a panel that pops up that says something about verify your email. And there's a security feature within our product. So here, let me explain what's going on. The reason you're getting that pop-up is because we will not let you move from one Sumo Logic environment to another Sumo Logic environment without your permission, right? We won't let you go from the Sumo Logic log environment to the community environment without your permission. So that's why you're getting this pop-up. And when you click on it where it says verify email, that button, it will then within a minute send you an email. And if you look at the body of that email, there's a button on that says, something about verify your email or approve or whatever. You click on that, this problem goes away. This problem will never happen again. So this is a one-time thing. You fix it and it's done. Now, the reason I wanted you to do this was to get to the certification exam. If you would, you click on the Home tab. And then under the Home tab, you see this link called Certification. And under Certification, you see this Get Certified. Now, when you click on Get Certified, if it takes you back to here, that's that issue where we need to click on Community, get this pop-up, click the button up here, it sends the email, we click on the button on the email, this problem goes away. So that now when we click on Home, Certification, Get Certified, now you're able to go into our learning management system. By the way, here in our learning management system is where we keep the passwords updated. So I mentioned you could send me an email when we get around to November. You can also come in here and look and see what the new password is. So if you're taking an analyst type class, like we are right now, the password security 21 exclamation mark. Here's the accounts that you use. If you want to do an admin class where you set up collectors and metrics and all that good stuff, you use training plus admin and numbered account. Again, it's the exact same password this time. Usually they are separate passwords, and I'm sure in November they will be separate passwords again. Now, down here, I have a series of tiles for each different class and each different certification that we have. By the way, is everybody able to get here okay? Anybody having a problem getting here? I'm going to take your silences. We're good to go. All right. By the way, before I get into the fundamentals tile and go into this, I want to show you something else. Here is your profile in the upper right-hand corner. Okay. I added my picture just because I'm a knucklehead and provided the information here. By the way, this information comes from your system. So the first name, the last name came from your system. That's why when you asked earlier about making a difference if I use dev or prod or whatever, as long as you're administrator in those environments, put your first name and last name in there, you're fine. If they didn't, you'll have to switch to another environment. Then here you can see your certificates. You can add them to your LinkedIn profile. Okay, so just want to mention that to you. If you want to add this to your LinkedIn profile, you certainly can. Any of these that you pass, life is good. Now, the reason I'm doing this is I want to show you something. So here for us to take the exam, we're going to click on this fundamentals tile. That's the class that we're in. And here's a fundamental self-paced course that you don't need to worry about. Here's the fundamentals exam in English. Here's the exam in Japanese, and here's the exam in Spanish. Now, I'd like you all not to follow along with me for a second. I want to show you something that's very important, but I don't want you to click along and follow me just yet. So I'm going to go into the fundamentals exam, and there's a little button here that registered for free. All of our exams, ladies and gentlemen, are free. All of our courses are free. What could be better, right? Free. So here you click on register for that exam, boom, you're registered. Now, there's a section here before you start. The exam consists of 30 questions. You'll have 60 minutes to complete it, and I will be here for that 60 minutes, okay? The exam is open book, open notes, open slides, whatever. If you get stuck on a question, ask me or Alex. We will gladly try to help you. Our goal is to help you, not to confuse you, okay? A passing score here is 75. Now, I'm going to click next again. I don't want you following me right now. I just want you to watch. So when I start taking the exam and I start the assessment, all right, if I start scrolling down, my counter up here starts, okay? And then I start getting faced with questions. Now it says by default, legacy dashboards are created in interactive mode, which requires user, that statement is true. They are not in live mode, okay? So in order to set them to live mode, this statement is true. And then question number 2, true or false, once an app is installed in the app catalog to be shared like other dashboards and queries, that statement is also true. I'm going to answer just 2 of these questions, and I'm going to go to the end, and I'm going to submit my exam, which means I've obviously failed. And it's true, I have failed, but I did at least get 2 of the questions right. And by the way, I can see what questions I got right, the questions I got wrong. But here's the important thing, and here's the reason I'm showing you this. See the submit button? When you take the exam and you pass the exam, and you are very proud of yourself, and I am proud for you, do not forget to click the submit button, because by clicking the submit button, it's going to add it to your profile up here, and therefore it's now got a record that you took the exam. If you don't click the submit button, the exam did not happen. You will go to your profile. You will not see your certificate. You will not see any of that information. So please, I wish the system did this automatically, but it doesn't. Please click that submit button when you are done, if you pass the exam. If you didn't pass the exam, I don't care if you click on it or not, go ahead. But and by the way, you can immediately take the exam again if you want, if you do not pass the first time, but hopefully with all the help and stuff today, you'll be in good shape and you'll pass it. What questions have you with regards to the exam? Okay. Can I show you how to get to the exam again? Absolutely, be my pleasure. So you're in your Sumo Logic, your company's Sumo Logic environment, right? You click on this home tab, click on the certification, click on get certified, and hopefully it takes you right here to our learning management system. If it doesn't, we'll deal with that separately. Then you'll click on fundamentals. Then I'm going to assume you all want to take the fundamentals exam in English. I don't know if any of you are fluent in Japanese or Spanish. I am not. So but hopefully that answers your question about how to get to the exam. You're welcome. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, I'm going to turn my camera back on for a second, and I'm going to be here for the next hour or so while you guys all take the exam. But if there's anything we can do for you, if any questions you have for tomorrow's session, feel free to jot them down, and you can ask those questions tomorrow as well. So I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow's session. Go ahead and take your exams. Have yourselves a good day. When you're done with the exam, feel free to sign out, leave the classroom. Have yourselves a wonderful day. And like I said, I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Alex, is there anything you would like to add, sir?
No, thank you very much, obviously, for the lectures. There was just one quick question in here about the course for tomorrow, which I believe is cloud security analytics, isn't it?
You are correct, sir. It is cloud security analytics. Again, just for fun here, let me go out to the labs. It is this one right here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to build the dashboard tomorrow. And we are going to build a dashboard with a focus on security in mind. So we're going to take a look at the top 10 login fail attempts. We're going to detect LAN speed violations. That's somebody who logs in with a short period of time from two different IP addresses that are totally geographically separated. It's an impossible travel situation. So we're going to go through a lot of these exercises here. And at the end of tomorrow, you'll be able to build this dashboard, and you can even bring it into your company's environment if you're dealing with AWS data. By the way, this is tomorrow's class. We'll do this with AWS data. We also have an Azure version of this as well, but the test questions are on the AWS stuff. So, but if you are on Azure Shop and you want to play with these, you can play with these labs yourself if you want. But those are the classes and labs and stuff we're going to do tomorrow. Hopefully that answers the question. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? All right, I'm going to stop sharing. I will be here in case you guys have any problems or questions with the exam. Otherwise, when you get done, feel free to sign out. Have yourselves a great day. I look forward to talking with you all tomorrow. So, like I said, go take the exam. Good luck.
Good luck, everyone.
And if you get stuck, don't hesitate to ask me or Alex. We don't want you frustrated. We want you to be successful. Hey, Zenizuski, and I apologize if I mispronounced your name. I do see your message. You guys are welcome to take the exam if you want to tomorrow or later today or whatever, that's fine. The big thing is that if you take it today and you pass it, you can, again, send a copy of the certificate to training@sumologic.com and we'll send you an Uber Eats voucher. If you don't take it today and take it another time, then that offer doesn't extend. So we really want you to take it soon rather than later. And yes, it's the same link for tomorrow as well. So, but yes, you don't have to take it right now. If you want to review the materials and kind of sit on things because you got here late, I understand, that's fine. Your choice. So I hope that answers your question. Yeah, hey folks, when you're done with the exam, feel free to sign out of the room. Just go ahead and leave the room and we'll see you back tomorrow. So whenever you're done, feel free to sign out. There's no more conversation here. So I'm going to stop the recording. So.